I've been seeing ads for The Mandalorian and Grogu, which makes me think of Yoda. Unusual grammar he has. And people sometimes ask if he's speaking real English, which is a fun question to consider. I mean, what makes English real? Clearly, Yoda is communicating using English words, and we understand what he means. So, in that sense, it's real. Yoda makes words plural the way we normally make words plural and conjugates his verbs the same way we do. The only difference between standard English and Yodish, as some websites call it, is the word order. Typically, standard English sentences follow a subject, verb, object order. For example, we'd say, Han Solo digs Princess Leia. Han Solo is the subject, digs is the verb, and Princess Leia is the object. Han Solo digs Princess Leia. Subject, verb, object. That's the typical pattern, but it's not unheard of for English speakers to deviate. For example, you could say something like, she wants to fight, and fight she will. That fight she will part is just like Yodish, but we use it for emphasis. Charles Carson, longtime editor of the journal American Speech, told me way back in 2008 that, quote, poets and lyricists frequently deviate from standard word order because of meter, rhyme, or aesthetics. For example, over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go is Yoda-esque in its construction. Yet English speakers sing it without a thought. With this ring I thee wed is another example of something that deviates from the subject-verb-object construction, but that most people still consider real English. Carson also said that although Yoda shifts around sentence elements, he doesn't do so randomly. He tends to use object-subject-verb word order, as in Princess Leia Han Solo digs. And he doesn't break up syntactic units like prepositional phrases or infinitive phrases. For example, he keeps phrases together like to continue your training and to the dark side. Further, Peter Sokolowski, editor-at-large at Merriam-Webster, added that the Star Wars universe uses English as a common language of trade. So we meet a lot of characters who don't have English as their native language, and they talk with odd syntax too. So in that sense, Yoda's like any immigrant in the real world who's able to communicate in English, but comes up with sentences that might sound strange to someone who grew up speaking English. Sokolowski said, quote, the fact that some of these syntactical structures don't correspond with any that we know seems designed to underscore the very alien nature of Yoda's character. It makes us pay close attention to the speaker, just as we do with those who are learning English, unquote. And as an aside, there are actually a very small number of languages that have a sentence structure like Yodish. But according to Jeffrey Pullum in an interview in The Atlantic, they're only spoken by a few tribes in the Brazilian Amazon. So for nearly all English speakers, the structure would still sound completely alien. Sokolowski also notes that in Star Wars, the, quote, echo of old Hollywood stereotypes is evident in the depictions of evil and nobility with British accents, and wisdom coming from a severely laconic and utterly foreign character, unquote. He says characters who represent the old guard, such as the imperial characters, speak with an elevated British accent, whereas the scrappy heroes speak with American accents. He says that, quote, this makes for a satisfying internal logic and gives the impression of history and culture that's comfortable to many viewers who've seen Romans speak with British accents and martial arts masters speak with so few words that actual sentence structure is irrelevant, unquote. Not everything Yoda says follows what we think of as standard Yodish, though. He's actually kind of all over the place. For example, in the third movie, Return of the Jedi, Yoda asks, look I so old to young eyes? Which doesn't comply with standard English or what we think of as standard Yodish. In standard English, we'd say, do I look so old to young eyes? And in standard Yodish, we'd say, look so old to young eyes, do I? Carson says Yoda's speech patterns became more consistent as more movies came out. In essence, George Lucas became more practiced in Yodish and settled into a consistent set of rules. Still, some of his most famous lines are in standard English, like do or do not, there is no try. Both Carson and websites note that when Yoda has something really important to say, he tends to say it in standard English. For example, he uses standard word order and not Yodish when he tells Anakin the fear of loss is a path to the dark side, and when he comments that a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never attack. One theory is that Yoda's making an extra effort to speak standard English when his point is critical so that his listeners understand his point. And linguist Mark Liberman raised another interesting point in the Atlantic article about translating Star Wars into other languages. Even though it's Yoda's grammatical sentence structure that makes him sound alien, different translators have chosen to translate him in different ways. Reddit has a long thread where people describe how Yoda is translated in their languages. And for most languages that use a subject-verb-object order like English, Yoda speaks with the same kind of word order he does in English. But in languages that start out with a different word order, translators have made different choices, ranging from keeping it identical to the native language, so his speech doesn't stand out at all, to using correct syntax with more archaic vocabulary in Japanese, to using a word order common in classical Ottoman poetry in Turkish. It's a really interesting list, and I'll put a link in the show notes. So, to finish where we started, although Yodish may not conform to the most common form of standard English, it's hard to say it isn't real English when we have acceptable phrases like, with this ring, I thee wed. But it is certainly a fun topic for linguists. And finally, a big thank you to Charles Carson and Peter Sokolowski for helping me with this topic.